Every spiritually awakened person reaches a quiet moment of confusion. You look around and realize the people who once felt close no longer feel the same. Conversations feel shallow. Friendships feel distant. And you start wondering, why do I feel so far away from everyone? But what you're experiencing isn't rejection, it's redirection. When your spirit wakes up, something inside you shifts. Your awareness deepens. Your values change. And without trying, your circle begins to narrow. Not because you're better than anyone, but because you're different now. Your spiritual frequency has changed, and not everyone grows at the same pace. Some people were connected to who you were, not who you're becoming. And as awakening unfolds, distance isn't a loss. It's a sign that God is guiding you forward. Different frequency, different relationships. One of the quiet signs of spiritual awakening is this strange sense that you no longer fit where you once felt at home. Conversations that used to excite you now feel empty. Environments you once enjoyed begin to feel heavy, and you can't quite explain why, only that something inside you has changed. Spiritually awakened people stop resonating with the same conversations, the same humor, the same settings. Not because they think they're better, but because they're becoming different. Growth changes your frequency. And when your inner world shifts, your outer connections are affected too. This doesn't mean you're rejecting people. Often, it means they're still relating to who you used to be while you're slowly stepping into who you're becoming. That gap can feel confusing, even painful, but it's part of transformation. Jesus spoke to this when he said, "My sheep hear my voice." Not everyone can recognize the direction God is calling you into. Not everyone can hear what you now hear. So relationships built on the old version of you naturally begin to loosen. God allows that separation, not to punish you, but to protect what's growing inside you. God reveals what no longer belongs. When separation begins, it often feels lonely. People drift. Invitations stop. Conversations fade. And the first instinct is to assume something is wrong, that you're being rejected, abandoned, misunderstood. But spiritual awakening teaches a different truth. This isn't rejection, it's revelation. God gently pulls you away from people who cannot go where He is leading you. And at first, it hurts, because familiarity feels like safety. But as time passes, clarity comes. You begin to see which connections were draining you, distracting you, or keeping you spiritually asleep. Some friendships aren't removed, they're revealed. You start noticing how certain conversations leave you tired, how some relationships revolve around drama, distraction, or negativity. Doors close not to isolate you, but to protect you. Discomfort isn't a sign of failure. It's a signal of misalignment. Your spirit is telling you that something no longer belongs. Light and darkness cannot walk together. Scripture is clear that spiritual growth often brings separation. 2 Corinthians asks, "What fellowship can light have with darkness?" Not as judgment, but as truth. Light and darkness operate differently. They can coexist for a moment, but they cannot walk the same path for long. When your spirit awakens, you begin to see more clearly. And not everyone is meant to walk with you once that light turns on. Even Jesus stepped away from crowds when it was time for deeper purpose. He withdrew to pray. He chose smaller circles. He separated himself, not because people were unworthy, but because timing and calling required focus. Separation is not punishment. It is preparation. Awakening exposes truths that some people are not ready to face. And God will never force growth on someone who prefers comfort. Instead, He creates space so you can keep moving forward without being pulled backward. Growth confronts avoidance. As your awareness deepens, you start seeing things you once ignored. Motives become clearer. Patterns stand out. Spiritual heaviness becomes easier to recognize. This clarity is a gift, but it also changes how people experience you. Your growth can make others uncomfortable, not because you're doing anything wrong, but because your transformation highlights what they're avoiding. Your maturity confronts their stagnation. Your conviction exposes their compromise. Your peace unsettles their chaos. And Jesus said that people avoid the light because it exposes what they would rather keep hidden. And sometimes, friendships don't end because of conflict, but because your presence becomes a mirror. You didn't push anyone away. Your awakening did. Shared desires versus shared destiny. One of the clearest signs of spiritual awakening is a shift in desire. What once entertained you no longer satisfies you. Drama feels draining. Gossip feels heavy. Surface-level talk leaves you empty. You start craving depth, honesty, peace, purpose. And here's a truth many people don't realize. Most friendships are built on shared desires, not shared destiny. So when your desires change, your connections naturally begin to shift with them. You stop fitting into places you once tolerated. You stop pretending conversations are meaningful when they aren't. And this isn't arrogance. It's alignment. Scripture reminds us in Colossians, set your mind on things above, not on earthly things. When your focus rises, your relationships either rise with you or quietly fall away. Your spirit naturally disconnects from anything your future can't sit with. Fewer connections, clearer purpose. As awakening deepens, circles often get smaller. And while that can feel like loss, Scripture shows it's often preparation. God reduces relationships to protect your calling. Some people were assigned to your life for a season, not a lifetime. Some voices can't stay because they would talk you out of what God is trying to lead you into. Smaller circles bring clarity, focus, spiritual protection. Look through Scripture and you'll see the pattern again and again. Moses was separated before leadership. Joseph was isolated before promotion. David was hidden before the throne. Paul was set apart before his mission. Isolation wasn't punishment, it was shaping. Jesus said, "Many are called, but few are chosen." And that number often becomes smaller when your spirit wakes up. You don't have fewer friends because something is wrong with you. You have fewer friends because your calling is becoming clearer. So if your circle feels smaller, if people are drifting, if you feel like you're walking this path alone, pause. Maybe you're not losing people. Maybe God is clearing the noise so you can finally hear Him. The separation always comes before elevation, and spiritual awakening often feels lonely until you realize it's leading you somewhere sacred. Stay faithful to the process. What God is preparing you for will make the separation worth it. If your circle feels smaller, it doesn't mean something is wrong with you. Often, it means your calling is becoming clearer. God has a way of quieting the noise around you, so you can finally hear His voice within you. And when that happens, loneliness isn't abandonment, and it's preparation. It's space being made for growth, direction, and purpose. Separation always comes before elevation, every time. So if people are drifting and the path feels quiet, trust the process. God is not taking anything from you. He's positioning you for what's next. If this spoke to your spirit, comment "awake." Save this, share it with someone who needs it, and follow for the next message about what comes after separation.